Welcome, friends. My name's Ben. Today we're talking about what the great fantasy worlds have in common. In particular, we're trying to answer the question, at least partly, why do we care? One of the things that is common to fantasy worlds like Narnia or Middle-earth and many of the great stories is that you end up really caring about the world, the countries that you spend time in the story, and caring about what actually happens to them as a consequence of the conflict that's happening in the story. One of the things that Tolkien and Lewis do well, and many other authors, but them especially of the books that I've read, is that you don't just care about the characters. You care about the setting that they're in, and especially their home, but also the places and the kind of, magical environments that they're in. I think one of the things that I see in why Tolkien and Lewis did that so well is because they had a deep value and appreciation for simple beauty, life, and they could describe it well, which is obviously a matter of skill as well. But that enables you to actually see something that is just alive and just intuitively wonderful to appreciate, the way that you love seeing a starry sky or a grassy meadow with especially like horses running through it, galloping through it, and their mane streaming in the wind. There's a certain natural appreciation for beauty and life as it should be, whether that be the vibrant magic of the Golden Wood or the rolling green hills of Rohan, the shining isle in the Wingfeather Saga, or the fiery soul of a flower in Dandelion Fire. In each of these stories you get the vibrant, touching picture of simple, beautiful life. It makes us love that world and want to adventure in it and be part of it, which we get to do through the characters in that story. One of the great examples that I love early in Tolkien's works is in The Hobbit. Bilbo, his experience just after the dwarves' song when they're singing "Far over the misty mountains cold." As they sang, the Hobbit felt the love of beautiful things, made by hands and by cunning and by magic, moving through him. A fierce and jealous love, the desire of the hearts of dwarves. Then something Tookish woke up inside him, and he wished to go and see the great mountains, and hear the pine trees and the waterfalls, and explore the caves and wear a sword instead of a walking stick. He looked out the window. The stars were out in a dark sky above the trees. He thought of the jewels of the dwarves, shining in dark caverns. And C.S. Lewis, likewise, in Narnia, paints a picture of something beautiful that draws us to adventure in it, which is one of the great values of fantasy stories, is that they draw us to journey through them and to go out and live. The glistening eastern sea, the great western woods, the radiant southern sun and clear northern skies, which the Pevensies are enthroned over, and which they adventure through, and causes us to want to go out and adventure in a radiant, vibrant, living world as well. In The Lord of the Rings, likewise, you have, first, in the Silmarillion, amid all the splendors of the world, its vast halls and spaces, its wheeling fires, Iluvatar chose a place for their habitation in the deeps of time, and in the midst of innumerable stars. And that, of course, is talking about the children of Iluvatar, the men and elves. But in The Lord of the Rings, we get the same picture of beauty that they adventure through. Turning back, they saw across the river the far hills kindled. Day leaped into the sky. The red rim of the sun rose above the shoulders of the dark land. Before them in the west, the world lay still, formless and gray, but even as they looked, the shadows of night melted, the colors of the waking earth returned. Green flowed over the wide meads of Rohan. The white mists shimmered in the water veils, and far off to the left, 30 leagues or more, blue and purple, stood the white mountains, rising into peaks of jet, tipped with glimmering snows, flushed with the rose of morning. It's one of the things that's indispensable. If we don't care about the world, the story just doesn't have the same level of power, especially in a fantasy world. Now, there's different types of stories, obviously, but Tolkien did it so well. It's one of the things that's inspired millions and millions of people. And having that heart as a writer is something that is very important, to have that heart for beauty. And as a reader, it's something that you just get moved by. And it's one of the things you sometimes unconsciously judge a story by, is its beauty as compared to another. At least I know that's the case for me. There's darkness and terror and evil in these worlds as well, of course. There wouldn't be a story without it. But the fundamental beauty and life and just vibrant color and meaning that we can see in the world in each of these, in Middle-earth and Narnia, stories like in the Wingfeather Saga where we see the Shining Isle and the Green Hollows. One of the things that makes us want the world to be healed, the main thing that makes us want the world to overcome that evil, is the fact that it is beautiful, and the brokenness is something that it's the beauty, the good that is broken by the evil, and we want to see that restored because it calls to us in the way that we're made, in our nature, just the way that we see things automatically. You know, the same kind of appreciation for why we love being out in nature with the animals and the wind and the grass and the trees and leaves. And something that is very remarkable in both Narnia and especially in Tolkien's work in Middle-earth is that the simple, commonplace beauties of grass and green earth and many different just things that we see all the time are tied to things that are much higher, things that we may also see often, but that are just obviously ancient and grand, like the stars, but then the history behind the stars and, you know, the powers that brought those forth in Middle-earth. It's kind of ennobling because it connects our present life in the, you know, in the story with the hobbits, the simple common things that they're in when they go to Gondor, to something far higher and more ancient and more grand. The simple gets connected to the high in a way that is beautiful. And Tolkien talked about this. In his letter to Milton Waldman in 1951, Tolkien talked about what he aimed to accomplish in his writing, or at least some parts of what he continued to aim to accomplish. I had a mind to make a body of more or less connected legend, ranging from the large and cosmogonic to the level of romantic fairy story, the larger founded on the lesser in contact with the earth, the lesser drawing splendor from the vast backcloths. It should possess the tone and quality that I desired, somewhat cool and clear, be redolent of our air, and while possessing, if I could achieve it, the fair elusive beauty that some call Celtic. It should be high, purged of the gross, and fit for the more adult mind of a land now long steeped in poetry. I would draw some of the great tales in fullness, and leave many only placed in the scheme and sketched. The cycle should be linked to a majestic whole. And he goes on, but he shows us the picture of something that has the vast, the high, the grand, the abstract, things that are far-reaching and yet also grounded in the earth, the connecting like the stars and the earth and the land. And we see that in the music of the Aenir and the creation of Arda, and then also in just the way that The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings is described in each step of the journey as they go through from the Shire to then Bree and then Rivendell, and just see a whole new level of beauty there, and then going to Lothlorien and the many different lands. So to answer the question, why do we care about the great world that draw us in? I think it's because they're worlds of mythic beauty and life that speaks to us in the way that it's shared. And I think there's another reason as well, another part, but I think I'll leave that conversation for next time. And so, farewell. Until our next meeting.